UFC Edmonton is coming up this weekend. Two very interesting fights at the top of this card. I don't think we're going to do the full main card breakdown in the way that I normally have. I guess a bit of an announcement here, but coming up on Saturday at 1 p.m., it is going to be a special edition of Sportsnet Today 960 on a Saturday. It's going to be myself, and I believe Shan Verji is going to be there as well. We are going to be doing a full preview of UFC Edmonton. So we're not going to do the traditional breakdown in the way that we have done it here. We're just going to look at a couple of the main fights on this. We've been talking all week about Erin Blanchfield taking on Rose Namajunas, and this is one I have been going back and forth on as the week has kind of gone on, and even as the months have gone on since this one was announced. Right now, Blanchfield is favored. She is at a minus 138. Rose Namajunas you can get at a plus 120. For Blanchfield, she is 25 years old, and a meteoric rise stalled a little bit in her last bout when she lost in the main event of the UFC on ESPN back in March, losing a unanimous decision to Manon Fiorot. Taking on Rose Namajunas, who at 32 years old is a multiple-time UFC champion, one of the more decorated mixed martial artists in the history of the sport. She is coming in having won back-to-back fights after a loss to Fiorot herself, and also a split decision loss against Carla Esparza, where she lost the strawweight championship. But since moving to flyweight, she is 2-1. She did lose to Fiorot, but then wins over Amanda Ribas and Tracy Cortez, have her knocking on the door of a potential title shot. This has been a really fun story with Rose, and legitimately Rose is one of my favorite fighters that I have seen. And I have a ton of respect for her. I do worry that maybe this is a little bit getting up a little bit too high for her right now, given where she is at in her career. I think when you look at the losses that she has had, it is Fiorot, it is Esparza, Jessica Andrade, and then Kolbakevich, Esparza again, and Tisha Torres. We are talking about some of the top fighters in whatever weight class she has been, be it bantamweight, be it flyweight, whatever it may be. But I do consider Erin Blanchfield to be in that realm. So I think that this is going to be I just think Erin Blanchfield is a little bit better. The one thing I will caution against, though, is Erin Blanchfield, when she has been getting finishes, it has been by way of submission. Her last three finishes, and her only three finishes in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, have come by way of submission. Rose Namajunas has been submitted one time in her career. It was in her fourth career fight, and it was against Carla Esparza on the TUF finale. So it's been a while since Rose has been submitted. I think she is a very good fighter on the ground, and I do think that maybe she is just a touch better than Blanchfield on the feet. And so if we get the best version of Rose Namajunas, and we have seen no reason to believe that she isn't going to be like really coming up for this one, but I do think that there is just a slight talent gap overall for her. But if she is able to dictate where and when this fight goes, I do think that is a bit of a nod in kind of her favor. For 5 rounds, it's going to be a very interesting chess match. I am going to go with Erin Blanchfield. I do think that she ends up getting a victory in this fight. That this isn't one I'm going to click on by any stretch of the imagination, because I think this is going to be a very, very close fight and a very intriguing fight. And again, legitimately one of my favorite fighters of all time in Rose Namajunas, and the fact that she gets to throw it down again here in the province of Alberta is really cool. The one thing I do want to see, what are we looking at in terms of odds for how many rounds this thing may go? Right now, okay. So they have the same sense I do, that this one could go the distance. Right now, if you just want to take over 4.5 rounds, it's minus 256. And will the fight go the distance is minus 250. So honestly, the under on both of those is at plus 210 and plus 205. That might be worth it, just hoping that either Rose lands a devastating knockout shot, which she knocked out Zhang Wei Li back in 2021. That's her last knockout win. Blanchfield has never been stopped, so you can see where that one is kind of going. But given how good both these fighters are on the ground, given how good at least Rose is on the feet, there could be a bit of a value play there if you wanted to go that way. But my official call is Blanchfield to win this one by unanimous decision, or by decision anyway, I guess. I shouldn't guess on the unanimous of the fight. Anyway, flyweight fight between Brandon Moreno and Amir Albazi. Very interested to see how this fight goes. You have Moreno coming off of a split decision loss in his last bout against Brandon Royval, which has now made it 2 fights in a row that he has dropped. Going up against Amir Albazi, who is 31 years old and is riding a wave right now, coming off of a split decision win over Kai Kara France in the biggest fight of his career back in June. I think for Albazi, he wants this fight to look like the last 3 rounds of Moreno's fight against Royval. And honestly, I think Albazi is just kind of, at this point in their careers, a better version of what Royval can do. I think it is someone who has some really good combinations and really tight boxing. I just think Albazi's a little bit tighter than that. And so the thing that Moreno had for him early in that fight, for Royval, was his counter shots. There are a couple of different ways you can use a reach advantage. One is to just keep a guy at a distance the whole time, keep him at the end of your punches, and just try to keep him on the outside and never let him get inside. The other is you have presumably a little bit longer to react to things because the guy has to lunge in and maybe get a little bit aggressive, especially early in the fights. And this is one of those fights that we were talking about when we were looking at the Max Holloway performance from last Saturday night, where the guy who figures out the range early can get an advantage. But when that second guy figures out how to get inside and how to get things going, there is very rarely another counter coming from that. And you can kind of understand it because a lot of MMA fights are 15 minutes. And so there are only so many ways you can, well, this is going to happen, so then we're going to do this. And then when he does that, we're going to do this. You can do that in a 12-round boxing fight where there are a few different... That one, a story can develop, for lack of a better term, throughout that. When you have 15 minutes to get the job done and you are training for that, it seems almost irresponsible to have a plan D to, okay, well, he's going to do this, so now we have to do this, and when he does this, we have to do that. But it just seems so often that for the longer fighter, the game plan is keep him at a distance, and if that doesn't work, it's like, well, shit. And so I think that is kind of what happened in this fight. Moreno did a good job early on to kind of tie up a few loose ends, because I know we've kind of gone on a few different paths on this, but Moreno used that reach advantage where he had a little bit more time to react. So when Royval was coming in, he was able to parry a little bit and land some really good counter shots. It started out a little bit as counters and then combinations, and then it started to be just kind of one big right over the top. But he was landing that pretty consistently. The fight turned though when Royval was able to get inside and really start landing his combinations and start to piece Moreno up a little bit, and that is where it just kind of shifted. And so that is going to be the key for Albazi, is that he's going to have to know for the first little bit he's going to be eating some shots, and there's going to be some power coming his way. But once he can get inside, that is where the real work for him is going to begin. And once that started happening, Moreno had trouble changing that tide again. He had a tough time going from just kind of this counterpuncher to it seemed like it would have been a good thing to just kind of mix it. And now you have to be the one figuratively and literally beating him to the punch and starting to get your offense going a little bit. He just couldn't stop that momentum of Royval. And I think Albazi is going to provide a similar issue for him. And so Albazi, the underdog in this fight, I actually like it. I'm going to go Albazi at plus 140. We're going to click on that one. And that's going to be our kind of upset special for this. Couple other fights just to watch for, as we've kind of been talking about. Janata Diniz against Derek Lewis. What are the odds on this one? I think Diniz is the favorite. Yeah, Diniz is favored at minus 163. If we can just go to a different odds page, looking at it here. I don't know why I closed this in the first place, but I did. This one, yeah, again, under a round and a half is minus 139. Will this fight go the distance? No, is minus 556. Do we have a result one here yet? Oh, we do. Diniz by knockout even is minus 120. So there isn't a whole lot of value in this particular one. Minus 120 isn't the worst if you want to go Diniz by knockout and play that one that way. But I do think that the kickboxer ends up getting the job done in a pretty fun fight. And I do think Jastovicius as well. I think she is going to come out of her fight victorious. No line on that one as of right now. So that is the preview for Couch Potato Diary for UFC Edmonton. We go way more in depth coming up on Saturday on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Check us out at 1 o'clock. We're going to be going live with that particular show there.